Hey guys, we're excited to do this review today, and we're going to do Skyfall. Skyfall is kind of a controversial Bond film. I've talked to a lot of Bond fans, and people say they love it. People say they actually hate it. I've seen people, they like how the gadgets were brought in, but they didn't think it felt like a Bond film. Other people have even said the girls weren't that hot. There's a lot of ranging opinions on this movie. It's directed by Sam Mendes. He brought a lot of people consider the classic American Beauty to the table, Road to Perdition, Jarhead. And here he directs a very bleak and almost dark Bond film. And the thing that sticks out to me the most about this movie is kind of that sinister, dark, grim tone that I don't think has been done before in a Bond film.
Yeah, so you get kind of introduced to James Bond's history and his family. He grew up, he was an orphan, but
Yeah,
anyway, you see where he basically grew up and get to see, the environment that he was surrounded by and kind of get an understanding of why he became who he is. And I think that it brings a whole other element that hasn't been brought to a Bond film yet until now.
absolutely. This is really the first time we even see glimpses into Bond's childhood in any of the movies. He's such a mysterious character, and he has a lot of mythos that we're never quite driven into. And this is actually one of the problems that I had with the film right from the gate, was that it's had this amazing setup, and I wanted to see it drive to places in this origin story that we had never seen before. And I thought it was more of a setup than a emotionally driven movie. That's one of my problems with it.
But, in classic Bond films, we have to relate it to the other Bond films.
Gotcha.
You can't just say that
Yeah.
this is a lone movie. We have to compare it to the other 24 movies.
Yeah.
And so, in this, I think that you get a lot more of that emotion from Bond, even though he's such a stoic, keep everything to himself kind of a character.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting, never been done in a Bond film kind of a concept. And we're going to keep referring throughout this probably to never been done in a Bond film,
Absolutely.
or has been done in a Bond film, because I think it should be compared to the other Bond films.
Yeah, and I even remember reading about this film and seeing how they brought characteristics of the Dark Knight into this movie. There's even a hint of Silence of the Lambs with the villain. And one scene in particular, which hopefully you've seen the movie by now, this is a discussion, is pretty awesome. One of the things I want to talk about is Daniel Craig and his acting in this movie. And I think one of the biggest themes of Skyfall is the grit and will to push on when your physicality should limit you to a certain capacity to keep doing that. There's even that poem that M reads later in the film, and it's all about grit and pushing forth. And I think Craig brings the word I'm going to use is finesse to this role that I don't think any other Bond person has brought. The way he lands down from the train and just, gets his jacket and, clenches his watch, and the way he kicks up the rifle in that one scene, and the way he drops that guy. I think there is finesse in his physicality that I've never seen before in Bond.
Yeah, and I think that Daniel Craig is probably my favorite Bond.
Yeah.
If I had to say, Roger Moore, super cheesy, Pierce
Interesting.
Brosnan, everything is
Yeah.
the most unbelievable. It's hard to wrap your head around kind of a thing. And then of course the classic Sean Connery kind of set the tone for what we think of as James Bond, this classy kind of get all the ladies, do everything the right way, kind of a jack of all trades character.
Absolutely.
As well as being very intelligent. And so I think Daniel Craig is probably the best interpretation of that since Sean Connery.
Yeah.
But
A lot of people compare him to Connery.
yeah, and because he's got that grit side of him. He's not just the pretty boy.
Absolutely. He's got the grip, but he's got the finesse that I don't think Connery
Yeah.
ever had.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things about this movie, too, is this is an extremely stylistic movie. This director is known for being almost artistic, and you see a movie like American Beauty, which is almost an entirely artistic film. So what in the world is he directing a movie like this? Well, the cinematography in this movie is stunning. This is the same guy who ironically filmed Prisoners, No Country for Old Men, and I think that's one of the best parts about this movie is it looks amazing, it's shot amazing, it has that tension, especially in that build up to the climax where we're just waiting at that lodge or in Bond's old mansion for those enemies to come. I think it's the best cinematography I've seen in a Bond film.
Yeah, I think so too. It adds a whole layer of suspense just because of the cinematography.
You got that scene where he's tracking that assassin up the elevator and all those lights going off in Shanghai. And I think that is one of the coolest shot parts in any Bond film that I've seen.
Very, very creative.
Very, very awesome. So let's talk about the intro of this movie. We just watched the intro, and Bond films are known for their intros.
Yeah, every single Bond film opens up with some incredible action sequence where basically Bond gets the good guy, or gets the bad guy and gets away.
Yeah.
So this one, shakes it up, and you think that Bond dies.
Yeah.
And you're kind of distraught at the beginning, but you know Bond's going to make a comeback, and in the classic Bond fashion, he survives anything. But I really like that it shows. It really is it opens up this idea that is then developed throughout the entire movie that Bond is getting old. Okay, and
Absolutely.
that Bond is replaceable, and so that kind of concept is tossed around a lot with a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the other sequences. In that Bond is past his prime. And that's sort of the underlying theme throughout the movie, and that times are changing.
Yeah, and they really carry that theme well throughout the entire movie. And it's that what I talked about, that sheer grit to, even though he is physically past his prime, it doesn't even get to him, and he doesn't let that control him. He's just got that grit to move on. So this is where I think we differ from the movie the most, and I really am excited to talk about this, is the emotional depth of this film. So this is actually the most repulsed I've been by Bond in a movie, and there's two reasons.
Repulsed, strong words.
So we see the end of Casino Royale. We see that Bond is going to be an emotionally distant character from thenceforth. So we already have that set up, but how he handled that situation of, and I know this scene's talked about, the scotch being on top of the girl's head, and him still aiming, him still shooting, and him not taking down the bad guys until after she's already dead. A girl that he's slept with the night before. And it's scenes like this in the movie where we don't have that shower scene that he had with Vesper and Royale. I can't help but compare it a little bit to that movie.
The emotional shower scene, not the...
Emotional shower scene. Yeah, we got another shower scene.
They're crying in the shower.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to.
I never have that empathy for Bond in this movie, and it keeps me from being gripped completely by the film, because I never quite empathize with him, and I know this guy's a license to kill. He's a stone cold, killer, but it lacked that depth that I have seen in a few other Bond films. And the climax with the lodge, it just never quite took me to the depths I wanted it to go to. And I'm curious what you think about it.
I think that so in my empathy / emotions category, I gave it a 7. Okay,
Yeah.
It's out of 10. So
I gave it a 4.
why I gave it a 7 is because I think that even though Bond is so stoic, I think that it's shown a lot in his actions, and it's shown a lot in his decision making, how much he really cares, and you get to see this deeper side of him, even though it's not explicit. It's sort of an implicit deepness. And when he has those conversations about defeating how they should defeat this guy, and how he's going to basically, it's all going to come full circle, and he's going to be able to get over his past at the same time as getting over this villain played by Javier Bardem. And I think that they actually tie in a lot of emotional aspects from two characters that are the most unemotional, unrevealing, but pretty deep characters. And so I think they do
Especially that
a
scene
pretty
with him.
good job of making it emotional out of something that, a character that's promised to never, be influenced by love or emotion again after the last movie. And so I think they do a really interesting job of, following through with what he promised in the last movie, but also, being able to communicate that in a way...
It's implicit.
Yeah, that's implicit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is, I guess, really, I think the only thing about this movie that we're kind of on opposite ends of, and I can't wait to see if we even have any viewers, what they think about this. Well, one of the aspects of this movie that also got me down a little bit was the dialogue. Mm-hmm. And I think it also relates back to kind of the same implicit themes that you're talking about. So this movie, going back to how we opened this, is a little more sinister and dark and bleak, and it doesn't have that playfulness that other Bond movies have. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be a strength, and you can maybe argue that it's a weakness. But in this movie, I like to see that wit and quick-witted humor from Bond and kind of those lines that he delivers and in Royale, and I didn't think they landed in this movie. And I think that they've already developed Bond's character enough that he was a little bit more bleak in these dialogue situations, and it didn't quite land for me completely, and it didn't quite develop Bond's character more in any other way. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, what did you, compared to other Bond movies, how did you feel about the dialogue?
I think it flowed pretty well, and I think I like the dialogue so much because the movie just has so many ties to the older movies. So to really appreciate this movie, then you gotta know about some Bond history and how everything that he says and everything that there's so many references.
A lot of throwbacks,
older films, and I appreciate that so much. But I think the dialogue was somewhat bleak compared to some of the other movies like Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Comparatively, yes, I think on its own, I think it did a decent job. But that's my thought.
So we got that opening scene. How gripped were you by that opening? Because compared to we're comparing to other Bond movies a little bit, but just in its own, how were you gripped by the opening? How did you feel about the climax and how it all tied together?
I was very sad. That's probably one of the better things they could have done at the beginning of this movie, because it's somewhat less emotional.
Yeah,
is that you then make the audience upset at the very beginning by Bond being shot and falling off of a waterfall.
Yeah.
And then you don't really know what happens. And then, anyway, so I like that even before they play the, classic theme intro, that you think Bond might be dead. And I love that they do that to the audience.
Yeah. I love Bond mystically kind of rising from the dead here.
Yeah.
I love the Adele theme. I think it's
and you don't even know what happened. It's in the theme, apparently he gets, makes it out alive. You don't know. You basically just see him on a beach. Afterward.
And we talked about this after the movie.
It's months afterward.
It's kind of the mythos of the character. It's kind of like he just has this mysterious ability, and we don't know how he did it. It's pretty much impossible, but he's Bond.
Yeah.
And I think that was awesome. I love Bond dying. I love the Adele. The action didn't quite grip me completely to its fullest capacity. You got that scene at the beginning of Quantum. Mm-hmm. You got Royale. You got a few other ones.
This one's slightly more unbelievable.
It
almost hints at the Pierce Brosnan,
It does. There's a little bit of the Pierce Brosnan GoldenEye-esque motorcycles
motorcycles off of a cliff into a falling airplane, that kind of a thing. He was driving this, machine on top of a train while getting shot at,
And I loved how in Royale you don't even see him get into the construction vehicle.
Yeah.
Remember that scene where he's just there? And I love him dying. I love the Adele song, but the intro was a little bit... It didn't quite completely grip me in that realistic Craig way that a few of the other ones did.
Speaking of the intro, the song, the whole theme, that was awesome. I thought that was one of the better ones.
And it connects to the end of the movie.
Yeah, totally. I love that they reveal little, Easter eggs on what's going to happen inside of it. Like him getting shot and, getting old and that kind of thing.
What did you think about the conclusion of M, and what did you think about the villain in this movie?
I think it was an awesome setup for, movies in the future, being that, and you find out who Moneypenny is. And that you actually have depth to Moneypenny now, which is really interesting, because you know a little bit about her past and why her and Bond are kind of tight. You know,
Yeah.
they've got a past together, and yeah, I think it also at the very end, it's like you find out who all these new characters will be in the future.
You do. It sets up a lot of stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
This is kind of the last origin film too, because we see in Spectre we got now biofilm in this, and then we got more of the classic villain in the middle of a desert type Bond style. So I feel like this is kind of our last origin movie.
Yeah.
But going back to the villain, what did you think of Silva? What did you think of his acting, and what did you think about how he brought the tone of this movie forward?
So I thought that it was very interesting to have a revenge, you know, from the inside kind of a movie.
Yeah.
You know, and also just very modern, you know, the cyber attack kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was something that, you know, hasn't been done with Bond stuff, and I think it was kind of such a great tie-in with Bond getting old. It's like, you know, this recurring theme of him, you know, not really understanding, you know, he can't even understand the villain because he doesn't even understand cyber attacking, and you know, that kind of a thing where he's out of his, you know, basically element based on how old he is.
Q even mentions that, you know, when he is introduced to Q's the dichotomy between those two characters and how they're very different, and how, you know, Q even says, well, every now and then the trigger has to be pulled, and that's what Craig's still there for.
Yeah.
But so many other things.
Their like playful banter.
I did like him and Q.
Yeah. Great relationship there, and I like that. You know, he hands him just a gun and a radio frequency.
Yeah, you got the PPK now that can only be triggered by having your fingerprint on it,
which of course saves his life at one point, and then
it's very gadgety feel to
but it's also very simple.
Very simple and realistic.
You know, what were you expecting, like rockets or whatever?
Exactly. And this movie doesn't have the tone to carry anything like that.
Exploding pen. Yeah.
So as far as as you said, thematically, this movie, if it does anything right, which it does a lot of things right, carries a theme heavily through the entire movie and drives it very well. And I think that's what kind of your point.
The whole development and structure of it is relatively unflawed in my mind. You know, it builds so well. Character development's awesome. When they introduce Javier Bardem, he has like the 1.5-minute long speech as he's walking toward him.
Yeah,
and you just get a lot of insight. Into both characters, and I think it's just it's a really, really interesting bad guy that they've introduced, and I think that he does a great acting job. But you know, I think that in relation to storyline and plot, I think it flows exceptionally well.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like you're never bored at any point in the movie, even though they still have, you know, some of the slower conversations.
Yeah, I like the development of this movie. I like the first act, the mysterious part of it. I like the final act being that dread and almost the most grim action scene I've ever seen in a Bond movie, if not the most. Just that dark setting of them waiting for that army to come, and the helicopter coming and blowing up stuff, and you know, M dying, and it's very dark. Bond almost drowning underwater.
And then Javier Bardem almost doing like the double suicide kind of a thing.
We've never seen anything like that in a Bond movie. I thought the soundtrack in this movie was really good. I thought it was more of a sound design tension. There's even a lot of quietness in this movie, especially when they go to Scotland. Just lack of music that I thought was used exceptionally well. This isn't the kind of soundtrack, once again, that I'm going to listen to on my own. But I think it does a great job of editing and tension.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
So what did you give the score overall?
So I gave this movie 283 out of 390. I had to revise this score, and that's going to be a 72.5. So I'm a little lower than you were on this film.
Yeah, so I actually gave it an 89.23.
Yeah.
89.23. So, you know, really between us, that means it's right around an 80.
Absolutely. And I'm so divided on this movie.
And so, yeah, I mean, there clearly are a lot of differing opinions where he thinks where Daniel, you think that there are certain things that are more average than I think they are, but overall, I mean, we agree that this movie is
on a lot of stuff.
very, very enjoyable.
Absolutely, still one of my favorite Bond films.
Yeah, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more if you've seen a lot of the older Bond films.
Absolutely.
So that's really what we're getting at.
Just lacked a little bit for me in emotional development and a little bit in the soundtrack and structure department. But other than that, I thought this movie did a lot of things great. I'm very divided on it. I really liked the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the acting was pretty spot on with the characters,
Solid.
what we expected.
Yeah.
And then I think that a lot of the action stuff was real. And I love that a lot of these new Daniel Craig Bond films don't depend on CGI hardly at all. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. It's like very, very stark differences where you can tell CGI made this movie or not. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of this real stuff I just appreciate it so much more.
Hmm.
But yeah, good movie. And closing remarks?
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.
And I think, for people that love and hate it, I lean towards the strongly liking of it. And I think Graham really loves this movie, but we'd love to see what you guys think. Comment. Tell us if you saw it.
I'm also a huge Bond fan, so it's kind of anticipated.
Yeah. Comment, see who you agree with. We're
Yeah.
curious. Let us know, and we'll see you next time.